now.
Okay, this makes me honor, so I hope that also the infrastructure will allow
A lot of noise.
a lot of noise.
Actually, just a moment, I will try to solve it. So Dr. Milorad, please unmute yourself and you are able to continue.
Okay, it seems that now it's working. I hope that now the voice is coming clearly. And that
very nice. Please don't unmute yourself, dear authors. Dr. Milorad will be able to continue.
Okay, so again, good afternoon. My name is Milorad, and it's really a honor and a pleasure to host the first session of the conference, CAWA 2020. The title of the session is Architecture and Technology. And I'm really glad to sharing experience again. Can someone confirm me, please, if the sound is arriving?
Yes, Hocam, Dr. Milorad, you may continue, no problem.
Okay, thanks. So one more time, I'm really glad to have the chance to host this session together with Professor Francesco Del Sole from University of Salento in Italy and Dr. Eshrar Latif from Cardiff University in the United Kingdom. Really thankful to all the participants who are also going to join us. I hope that you are all going to be here connected with us. And as we were considering, each author, accordingly to the schedule that has been developed, will be invited to make a share as a background the presentations as prepared by our authors. And in particularly in my case, I'm really glad to share with you my latest research that I carried last semester, and it is focuses on the topic of the design studio courses at bachelor level in education. We know that a design studio course, it's an extremely complex environment due to many different participating factors. But at the same time, it's an environment that also offers a lot of possibility for the experimentation in many different fields. These are some of the reasons that brought me to develop a proposal of a model for the design studio courses that generally can be how can I say, oriented toward the entry-level students, or let's say generally the students who are taking the studio course for the first time. And generally by observing the attitudes of the students, this model wants somehow to help in the process of overcoming some of the main difficulties that the students might face. As one of the concepts of this model for the studio course, there is basically a division into 3 steps, each of them lasting 5 weeks, and for a different topic has been proposed to the students. And I'm also very glad that the first topic that has been proposed is the same that Professor Donia Zhang showed us in a very exhaustive and very complete presentation regarding the Courtyard Houses, which is, as we have seen, a very international and largely diffuse topic. But in this case, its main function was oriented toward the space relation and relation. The further topics regard the row house typology and villa typology design. For each of those typology, students had an intermediate jury, whereas on the final jury, students had to develop all of the projects with relative improvements and suggestions. In order to evaluate this research, a questionnaire has been proposed and submitted to the students who participated actively, with intention to understand also from their point of view if the course objective, time management, learning environment, as well as the quality of delivery have been organized properly and suitable also from their point of view. And as a summary, this model has been proposed. Generally, the responses that coming from the students received very good feedback. But however, since a model has been applied only once and the number of the students is not particularly high, we are talking about 30 students, in my personal opinion, the model shall be applied, of course, more than once, and preferably in a working condition with the students who might have had a different background in order to understand its reliability and possibility to be applied to further study cases. This is in a very short summary, the presentation, how can I say, the introduction of my work with main findings and proposals that I managed.
So
yeah, questions, of course, I'm available to answer.
Yes, I see all the presentation of Milorad, and I think that is clearly and comprehensively expressed. I believe that this type of analysis of a study course can also be taken as an example in other areas of study, especially to verify the efficacy of the course in relation to the student's opinion. I agree with Milorad's opinion to try as a next step to widen the number of students to submit the questionnaire, the final questionnaire, even with a different background. I have only some questions, if you agree, Milorad.
Of course.
Given the great importance that nowadays is attributed to the character of sustainability, what is the role that is assigned to this aspect in your course? There are any elements in particular that are being explored in deep?
Well, actually, in this course, I haven't mentioned yet the issue of the sustainability, but also let me explain you, please, the context. Since with the students that I was giving the studio course, parallelly, I was giving one more theoretical course, which in this specific case, in this specific semester, was mainly oriented about the building elements and materials. Therefore, my attempt was to trying to combine the aspect of more, let's say, structural and constructive aspects in this studio course. Also, since it's a first studio course for the students, but in the present semester with the same students, I'm actually dealing with the topic of sustainability. So therefore, I'm arriving to this point, but one semester after, with similar and a little bit more complex, actually.
So it's the first step of their course of study.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I have another question. Were there any projects that impressed you with their structure? So the students had to create a project in the final course.
Yeah. The students needed to develop 3 projects. Of course, increasing the level of difficulty, starting from the Courtyard House, passing through a different typology, and coming to the final project of the villa. Of course, like in every studio course, the results are pretty different. The effort of the students is different as well. But what is also the scope of this research? Generally, the students exhibit a good pace during the course, and the objectives that were defined in the beginning in terms of requirements for design solution and has been achieved. But as one of the questions of the beginner students and the entry levels, we are often dealing with extremely different conditions. I mean, the first studio course, you might find already the student who has good abilities in using the software and maybe already have had a little bit of architectural experience, but at the same time, we also have students who are dealing for the first time with the design project. So, in my opinion, considering the, how can I say, the final result, it has its efficiency, but the progress in this case and the evolution of the course, in my opinion, it really has more importance in order to verify the reliability of the model, of course. Then, as a result of the course, I mean, if we consider an exhibition and the quality of the project, then this might be a more complex evaluation, in my point of view.
Okay. It's enough for me. If there are other questions.
If there are no, then we can pass to the second presentation of this session. Dr. Şefik Emre Ulukan is with us, I guess. Yes, can you, Hurash Hocam, please unmute the...
Dr. Milorad, I don't know, you may take, I think it's a bit better to know who is available for this session based on the program that we have here. We can check from, let's say Dr. Şefik Emre is not here, seems. So
Yeah.
Francesco Sibilo, whether he's here or not.
I can see that Dr. Ulukan is here,
So if
but he cannot speak. So if you can please give him the voice.
If anyone is available here now for this discussion of this session, we can go with that. Is there anybody available?
Yes, Dr. Ulukan is here.
So you may start. We have lots of time for this session, so you may start to discuss. Please.
But can you give the microphone, please?
Please unmute your.
We cannot unmute ourselves of the project. And one of the main issues faced with the construction projects are the changes in due course of the project's life cycle, and actually coming back as a negative result, such as evaluation of the changes happening in due course of the project, which might impact the overall performance of the project. So one of the examples of these so-called failures is a project which is quite famous in the world, which is the Scottish Parliament building. And this project has been kicked off with an estimated budget of 40 million pounds. However, the project indeed cost 430 million pounds with construction risks. In order to do that, I have first categorized the changes based on the project phases. Simply, there is no time or no budget generally left to manage those changes. There are some methods to manage the changes, and one of them is a common one of them is the one that you can just happening because change is construction industry is very dynamic and changes happen all the time. That's why we need to recognize the changes and evaluate the changes at earliest stages as soon as possible. And then obviously implementing the changes and continuous improvement by learning from the, if there's a mistake, learning from the mistake would help improving the management of these changes, and that would definitely improve the performance of the project. If you could please, thank you. And obviously in the course of the study, I've prepared a basic comparison and impact matrix evaluating or assessing the changes on these construction risks. And as a result of the study, basically the outcomes was not very surprising, but obviously construction changes has a major impact on the project deliverables, especially on the cost and time of the, the duration of the project. And obviously the changes or change management is a very important process which needs to be part of the project management of any construction. Generally the case, however, the question is how well implemented the change management process is, because as I mentioned earlier, it is generally either poorly managed or underestimated. And obviously there will be further research needed to quantify the impact of the changes on construction risks. But as a result of this study, the highest risks are caused by the changes coming or arising from the scope and requirements, the design specification and construction stage design changes. So design is the critical element of the construction. And if the design brief or the requirements for the design is not captured well, that causes a lot of issues with regards to the additional, costs and time or duration. That's because obviously if the requirements of the client is not well captured, then the design changes are inevitable. And therefore, obviously, the change management process needs to be well managed, starting from the earlier phases of the project to the end of the project life cycle. So overall, that's all from me about the presentation. So if there are any questions or comments.
Well, I guess that Dr. Esrar was willing to intervene.
Hi, hello. Many thanks, Dr. Ulukan. It's a really nice presentation on change, the implications of change resulting into cost deviation and time deviation. And we know that, as you say, the Scottish Parliament cost really increased by many folds. Same happened to the Wembley Stadium. So I just have some few questions, basically two questions to you. The first one is this the findings that you have discussed, is it based on your survey or is it based on a literature review? I was a little bit confused about that.
It's based on the literature review. This study is not based on a survey, but obviously the next phase could be a survey, a wider and extensive survey to get the feedback and the inputs from different professionals. But based on the literature survey, the outcomes of the researchers, other researchers, indicate that the main issues related with cost and time deviations generally comes from the design changes.
Thank you, Dr. Ulukan. That's a nice answer and very informative. I have got just one more question. The question is, it is challenging to keep scope, specification, and construct stage design change for achieving better architecture. Given that that architects are really impulsive, they keep changing that design. And what do you think, to what extent this risk can be managed? I mean, if you could even manage the risk to some extent, can you guess what percentage of cost could be saved from what is happening now?
To be honest, the percentage of the cost is probably another study to identify potential, it's about the quantification of the risks as well. Once the, probably the next phase of the project, once the quantification is done, then we would probably have an indication around the percentage of the savings that we could achieve. However, as you mentioned, the designers or architects change their minds or change their designs a lot. On the other hand, there are some external impacts over the architects, such as the client and client requirements. They also change frequently. And from the outcomes of my research, I believe it's best to fix the project requirements at the beginning and capture them very detailed as much as it can be, because generally the planning phase of the projects are not given sufficient time. That's why the requirements of the clients are not well understood or not well captured. That's why the designs are also changed by designers, by architects, based on the client requests as well. So it's not a fault of a specific party like an architect or a client or the project manager, but obviously it's going to be a common task for all the parties involved in the projects, all the stakeholders, to improve this process. But obviously the solution, I believe, would be well capturing the client requirements and needs at the beginning and trying to stick with that initial plan, probably spending a little bit more time and effort at planning phase while the design brief is being prepared.
Thank you, Dr. Ulukan. I can see that, like I asked the first question, if it's a survey based, and you just said that previously you just said that you have another part of your project where extensive survey will be carried out. We'll very much look forward to the result of the survey as well. Thanks from my part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions as well and comments.
Thanks. Is there any other questions? No. Seems fine. Well, we may proceed with the next author. Francesca Sibilio. Is she with us?
Dear Dr. Milorad, if you can manage to take, let's say, attendance, call it, so we will see how many authors are there, and then you can manage the time accordingly. It would be great.
Well, we may proceed with the next author in the...
I think Dr. Gülnur is available.
Yes, I am here.
Yes, perfect.
And before, we also have one more presentation by Dr. Ulukan. Dr. Ulukan, would you like to present now presentation of Dr. Ulukan?
Thank you.
And the title is Integration of Cultural Change Management.
Have a flexible and agile workplace with the tech. This has changed the work styles as well. So the relation with and especially considering the millennials era in terms of the technology involvement on the work styles, obviously the workplace needs to adapt this technology enhancement and improvement as well. So obviously there are some benefits of the smart workplaces, especially the increased employee productivity, satisfaction, and talent retention and attraction, and increased efficiency and cost savings, reduced office or real estate footprint, which also helps with the sustainability related targets, such as the reduced operational costs or reduced consumptions, is changing towards home-based works and flexible working, etc. The workplaces should also adapt to this change as well. So while the workplaces are changing or the designs are changing, obviously the user requirements again is very important. And the user requirements are generally based on the culture of the new generation, such as millennials. However, the older generations, let's say older, but it may not be the right terminology from yes, let's say previous generation and the new upcoming generations have a different culture of working. And this difference comes from the obviously, the technology as well. So these cultural changes within the work styles is causing a major impact and major actually danger to the overall project management process, because there is generally a resistance to adapt to these changes in the workplaces. For example, adapting to the technology usage, or the millennials require more collaborative work style. However, the Generation X, for example, is not so much collaborative. They generally work more individually. So there is a model, as you can see on the screen, about the change. This has been a model developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross back in 1960s. It actually shows the reaction of the people, of the human, against or when they face with a major change in their lives. For example, if they learn that they are going to die, that's a major change. Or if they are ill, that's a major change. Or if their work is changing, or they are leaving the work, that's a major change in their life. So when people face with a major change, there is first a denial, and then a frustration, and then the depression phase of the reaction or the behaviors. Obviously, these changes, these depression, frustration, etc., causes a big impact to the performance and morale of the people. And then people start getting used to the situation, and they accept it. So they experiment the new lifestyle or new changes in their lives. They make a decision, and then they integrate those decisions or those new styles to their new life. So that's when the performance or the morale of the people goes back to either the same level or goes back to the new level. However, as you can see, the red curve, the depression, especially, or the reaction to the change, causes a big issue from competence. Thank you. The ideal case is to improve this curve and make the change as smoothly as possible. However, this change, smooth change, can only happen if a cultural change management is implemented. And there are some methods for the cultural change management process. And one of them is the ADKAR model. It's basically the acronym for each phase or each, let's say, task that needs to be followed. So it's an acronym for the awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcements. And these are what needs to be done in order to manage the changes of the work styles, so that the design of the workplace and the overall performance of the business can benefit from these these changes. So yes, please, thank you. Obviously, in the course of my project, I have engaged with some professionals, multinational project managers and facility managers, etc., to identify what these activities to improve or to manage the cultural change could be. And as you can see on the screen, there has been quite a number of activities identified to help with the cultural change management, which needs to be running in parallel to the project phases. And some of them are required at the initiation phase of the project. Some of them are required at the design phase of the project. For example, getting the inputs, getting the opinions of people for the design makes a big change. And because they feel more engaged, they feel they understand what's going on in terms of the office design or in terms of the business changes. So there are also some other activities at the later phases as well, like trainings to the employees, etc. And with the help and input from the participants of this study, this was a focus group study, basically. With the input from the participants, we have developed the project program, and we have integrated all these activities into the program or into each phase of the program, basically, starting from the initiation phase to the design and construction phases, and also to the delivery and commissioning phases as well. So yes, thank you. As a conclusion, basically the input from the participants to the focus group study was that cultural change management is a very important initiative or task that needs to be completed or started with the project, and it needs to be managed in due course of the project. And the model can be considered as a framework, although it can be developed with additional tasks, because each project is unique, each design is unique. Therefore, there must be some additional activities added to the to this framework. However, in principle, the study highlights at which phases, which type of activities can be implemented or integrated with the program. And the optimization of the duration for these activities may seem like a challenge for the project team. However, because of the benefits, the participants actually confirmed that this shouldn't be an issue, which might potentially impact the overall duration of the project. So it can be implemented in parallel to the existing project program. And the successful implementation of the change management increases the success level of the project, because in the end, the feedback received from the end users or the client is a lot better once the change management has been implemented. And one of the feedbacks from the participants, especially the facility manager who has managed various multinational companies' facilities, was that the change management should not end when the project ends, because she has faced with some challenges after the project has been completed, in terms of continuing the changes, or in terms of keep on adapting the people to the new workplace. That's why she suggested that change management process should continue after the construction is complete and the building or office is handed over to the client. So these are the main conclusions out of this study.
So thank you very much.
Any questions, comments?
Welcome for a very interesting presentation. Yeah, please, if there are comments, observations, curiosities.
Silence is golden. Thank you very much.
I have one question, actually.
Oh, sure.
About different working places. How can I say, in a more practical way? For example, designing a space for a bank rather than a post office or a university.
Yeah.
Accordingly to your analysis, how is the correlation between different working environments? Or what are the criteria that mainly the architects should take into considerations in this case?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think that also depends on the user requirements. So as I've shared during the previous presentation, the capturing of the user requirements is very important here, because it's about understanding what the client needs. But from client point of view, it's not only what the managers expect. The feedback or the input from the employees are also important. That's why we need the cultural change management, and that's why we need the engagement of all the employees, ideally, to the design. And depending on the design criteria or the design brief or the requirements from the client, the design is widely or hugely impacted. So in terms of the difference of the bank or a modern technological office project, obviously it's generally based on the user requirements, and designers should actually capture these requirements in detail extensively, so that the outcomes would be successful in terms of design or in terms of the functionality of the workplace. But obviously there are different work styles still not very much impacted from the change, because as you know, the banks may need more fixed employees, more fixed desks where the employees always sit in the same desk. However, a technology company doesn't require this type of work style. They are more flexible and they can work, I mean, even in the cafeteria. So that's the new lifestyle or work style. However, again, it completely depends on the users or clients' requirements to how to form the design in the beginning.
Thank you very much. Is there any other question? Otherwise, we may continue with Dr. Gülnur Balcı, who is here.
Yes, Balcı.
I apologize, Hocam, it's just my third year in Turkey, so my Turkish is still in a very long progress.
It is a little bit different surname, maybe, but we pronounce it Balcı.
Okay, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Is it okay, my voice?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. Just please let me share also just a moment, I apologize. I would like to share your presentation. Yes.
Yes. Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank my colleagues Eda Paykoç and Gizem Güler. They are online now also. Century apartment buildings in İzmir. So this is a part of a scientific research project which is continuing with the support of Yaşar University under the title of Spatial Analysis of Mid-Century Multi-Story Houses and transferring them to the virtual environment with three-dimensional techniques. And our study area is in Karşıyaka, İzmir. And it covers the apartment buildings in that area constructed between 1950 and 1980, which are now in danger of demolishing because of urban transformation law, supporting the renewal of the existing building with new ones. When we focus on the importance of the study, we can say that the societies are structured with both the cultural and historical heritage, which are also a keystone of national identities. Due to their values, the documentation of these architectural heritage plays a vital role in preserving the memory of the societies. And we combined this issue with the digital technologies. And with the emergence of the computer-aided design in the 1960s, the traditional documentation methods started to be replaced by digitized and electronic drafting process. So digital documentation is rapidly adapted to heritage research due to being more easily accessible and financially viable. And they have some advantage, being faster and giving more accurate results at the end, like 3D models. Digital documentation, the other name is e-documentation, can be broadly described as the documentation of the targeted objects in digital mediums with the help of computer-based and audiovisual tools for not only capturing the details of the building, but also reaching to a broader audience at the end. So our project aims to identify, investigate, document, analyze mid-century multi-story apartment building in İzmir from different perspectives and revitalize their interiors and architectural elements, reflecting codes of modern archive, catalog, brochure, and exhibition outputs that will be completed at the end of the project. It is aimed for researchers and city users to easily access all these data. Apart from the documentation and archive work to be created, 3D visualization methods will be used. 3D models of the areas selected from the facades, common areas, and interiors of the apartments will be produced according to the original parts of the project. And these buildings will be made permanent in the city's memory with virtual reality technology. Especially the characteristics of the domestic space, material culture, spatial relationships, living culture, and habits of the inhabitants were studied, especially focusing on, as I said, interiors, and all digital data documented, including existing archive drawings and old and new photographs of the buildings, oral interviews, and personal archives. We select one of the apartments here as a case study. This is in Karşıyaka, one of the leading apartments of the modernism period, and we study two different place in the apartment. One of them is belongs to the architect of the apartment, Cahit Akan's flat, and the other one is the in the fourth story, another flat. So according to this project, digital documentation consists of two processes. One of them is recording, and the other one is documenting. And here you see this process in detail. In documenting process, 2D, 3D drawings, graphic designs, and constructing website and social media design is you are seeing. And in the recording process, we started with on-site observation, measuring and 3D laser scanning, photo and video shooting, and oral history studies. In this apartment block, we will see the 3D studies in the next slide, and photographs from outside and inside, all the architectural and interior details of the building and the flats that we go into. So at the end, in the interior of the flat 15, which belongs to Cahit Akan, architect designed interior details and built-in furniture were characterized by a sleek and abstract look with the use of new materials such as formica, metals and plastics, linear and planar elements, built-in closets, shelves, seating and storage units, indirect lighting integrated with suspending ceiling elements were studied and transferred to 3D drawings. And the other flat also the same 3D drawings. Apart from these, graphics are designed to present in the planned exhibition and to share on the website. With the website and social media, it is expected to city residents and research can easily access to the outcomes. In conclusion, with the integration of digital technologies to architecture, the permanence of architectural values in city and residents' memory is ensured. You see here the graphics of this Pıtrak apartment. With the recording and documenting process of the selected apartment buildings in the İzmir-Karşıyaka region, permanence is aimed at visualizing the memories and data. Due to the digital recording and documentation process, it is expected to city residents and research can easily access to the outcomes. This digital documentation, which on a wider scale also contributes to identity of the city, allows us to understand the technical and architectural approach of the period, and it is planned to lead the way in documenting the history of architecture. And this project will also create awareness in terms of moving the cultural heritage of the modern period towards the future in a principled manner, bringing concepts such as virtual housing, identity documents, virtual city housing, architectural museum to the literature at the end of the project will bring a different approach to scientific studies in the field of modern housing heritage. As a conclusion and further studies, due to the technological revolutions and evolved daily practices to current pandemic conditions, people will start to deal with the digital medium, as we did, more, both as a working environment and for socialization. Regarding these changes, as further studies in the scope of this research, virtual reality methods, exhibition, 3D printer outputs, and e-catalog will be produced. With the exhibition planned as a continuation of this work, it is aimed to present this project to the citizens. Besides using 3D complementary visualization techniques, this work will be transferred to the virtual environment to make the experience of the people more subjective. And with the e-catalog work to be carried out, people will easily access to this data. Although the region to be worked in the project has been selected as Karşıyaka in the scope of this one-year project, it is planned to continue the citywide work based on this project in the future, and it is aimed to document and analyze the entire residential fabric of the city in the specified period over time as a modernism housing products in different neighborhoods of the city of Izmir. Thank you very much. If you have questions and comments, we are pleased to hear.
Thank you too for the very interesting topic among those that we have examined till now. I have a question actually before asking. It's my personal curiosity actually, and it's about we are talking about apartments that generally have more than 40 years.
Yes.
Of the construction time. While doing your research and examining, what is the level of authenticity that you could find? I mean, could you find some furniture dating back from those years, or some other elements dating back to the year 1980s, or generally everything has been transformed in the wild time?
Yes, yes, thank you for your question. You are right, it is hard to find the original things, especially for the furniture, mobile furniture, because people don't follow the contemporary or the up-to-date furniture when they are moving somewhere. They are keeping their old furnitures together, and they are living together with the furniture. It's coming from the older times, maybe. But our main focus on not specifically mobile furniture. We are only dealing, not only, if we find the mobile furniture, it is okay, but if it is too hard, we are focusing on more interior elements like built-in furniture, kitchen, bathroom, sanitary
materials also, I guess, like
materials, and indoor elements like doors, windows, and other details related with the balcony railings. Whatever we can find, it is okay. And the focus point is the apartments that produced by well-known architects, architect design buildings. So the details, the interior details, and the other details with the apartment staircases, entry lobbies of the apartments, all these details can support us. But you are right, finding original furniture from that period, it is too hard. because people do not want to keep the most of the people. The older ones have keeping all the things as they did, but the younger generation do not want to keep the older things. So we try to find the older owners that living in the same flat for a long time.
I see, because it depends on a cultural factor, let's say.
Yes, cultural factor, and the interior is rapidly changing. So if the owner is changed and the interior is rapidly changing, so we are trying to find, as I said, the older and how can I say, they are living in the same flat for a long time.
I see. Interesting, and good luck for your research and development.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other question, please?
Yeah, actually, I have one question.
Yes.
I might have missed it if you might have told about this. The question is, so are you capturing the evolution of these interiors, like as you're capturing this visual data? Is it one-off, or are you capturing them at, for example, like 1 year's interval, so capture the whole changes in time?
All changes in time, it is too hard to capture, because to be able to capture this, we have to find a lot of examples to be able to make this statistic work. But we are only dealing with at least 10 apartment buildings, and it is too hard to go into the flats, because permission and finding someone that lets me go inside, it is too hard. We are trying to find someone and knowing the other one, blah, blah, something. To be able to do this, we have to study on more apartments.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the authors, for their participation, and for the question. If you are okay, we may proceed with the next paper, authored by Ms. Boutania Sayad and Jamel Alkama. Are they with us?
Wrote anything. I think they are not here till that moment, because I was asking.
Okay, then also in this case, we may proceed.
Mustafa is here.
Yeah, I am here.
Yes.
Sorry?
I am here. This next article.
Mustafa, Mr. Mustafa.
So just a moment, please.
Okay.
Yes. So Mr. Mustafa Küçük.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Just a moment. Let me share also your presentation.
Dear Milorad, can I share my own screen?
That's a question for Roxane Hoca, actually, because I'm just a temporary user of the system, but she knows much more better than me.
Okay.
Is it possible, Hoca? Roxane Hoca, microphone, please.
Yes, however, in order to be actually on time, that's why we are giving the moderator to the session chair. But of course, if it is a special issue that you want to share, which is not in the video, of course, why not?
Okay.
So, do I need to share to change to multiple participants can share simultaneously, Hoca?
No, actually, I think Mustafa, he can press it in down part to share the screen.
Okay, let's try, please.
Thanks so much.
Yes, we have a limit of time. I don't know, dear Francesco is taking the time.
So I am taking the.
We have 45 minutes more, so I guess there shouldn't be any problem.
Okay. First session chairs and session and everyone hello, and I wish everyone success. I am the first author of my article, Mustafa Küçük. We would like to present our article that supports with field work, investigation of diagrid structures over Gerkin Tower, the use of the contents. I pass these parts. The use of the triangle is very common in architecture. Sorry, I am very excited. As it known, the triangle has very rigid geometric form. Vladimir Shkov, Russian architect and engineer, has noted what the diagrid structure and implementation of double curved hyperboloid in structural system in 1896. 70 years later, in 1963, the first building with the system was constructed, the IBM building in Pittsburgh, USA. However, at the time this building's construction, the diagrid system did not attract the attention of architects and engineers and others. Only after the British architect Sir Norman Foster use of the diagrid structure in his design, beginning with the diagrid Gerkin Tower. Mates in following years provided the recording of the diagrid structures, the recorded time of both worldwide. What's a diagrid? Diagrid is the abbreviated form of diagonals and grid words. The diagrids are structural systems that emerged as choice of contemporary architecture, and there are various functional and economic advantages underlying the system. The first example, IBM building of diagrid structure. System is running modules and nodes, and this is a node and module. Advantages of diagrid structure. Diagrids are structural systems that emerged as choice of contemporary architecture, and there are various functional and economic advantages underlying system. Maybe large spans can be easily formed and use of the roof cover. Due to the triangle arrangement of the structural elements, it allows buildings more solid structures. Structural performance is height, etc. Due to triangular form of supporting frame, it provides a nice aesthetic and impressive faces, etc. Gerkin Tower, same. This Gerkin Tower. Gerkin Tower, also known as 30 St. Mary X, is the skyscraper located in Financial District, London City, near the famous Liverpool City and Leadenhall Market. Gerkin Tower was built in 2003. It's considered the first ecological office building in London. The structure and architecture provided a great integrity in the building. The building consists of 31 floors, 1 underground, and 30 above ground, and is 180 meters. You can see more detailed information about the structural information in the article. If this section and elevation, 1 underground floor and 40 above ground. And this Gerkin Tower, our company that provided engineering services together with design of Gerkin Tower. This is nodes 360 degrees, and this building less steel usage 20%. And first of all, the grid structure provided many architectural freedoms and advantages to building. If we examine the interaction of structure with the architectural form, there are no columns in space. It gives freedom in design. It is built in short time, etc. In this building, the office building, and this although the building high structural success has been achieved against wind load, and the roof of tower, which circular plan that narrows, rises from the ground to top, is covered with dome. Also, 6 triangular pieces have been removed from circular plans, and light wells have been built in order to benefit from sunlight spans. This is a light wells. And no columns is there freedoms office areas. First, many direct buildings, especially those the curvular forms, tend to use triangular glass their faces. In this building, double glazing in the building, 5,500 pieces of the glass, and face cleaning special methods are required for paste cleaning curvilinear type structures such as Gherkin Tower in London. In order to clean the face of Gherkin, a rotating example crane to top of the tower has been designed. And atriums, this is a very especially areas. One of the performance targets of the Gherkin Tower has been used by daylight and the head at the highest level inside the wall structure. The floor plan angle of 5 degrees in atriums were formed in 2 areas. Every 6 floors it combined with a light well. The atriums are connected vertically, but each floor divides from the previous level at the angle 5 degrees and forms a spiral structure. By the means the light levels, the people working in the office make maximum use of the daylight, the research center, the circular floor plan. Ventilation, the face of the Gherkin Towers being equipped with complete double skin face triangular glasses, and the opening and closing feature of the windows in the light wells areas according to the weather conditions is important pillar of the opening glasses in the atriums created in line with this objective significantly contributes to ventilation in the building. This is a ventilation, this 7092 openable glass, and wind resistance, structural resistance made lateral forces such as the wind load, earthquake, waves, vibrations, especially the structure being forced by wind loads and turbulence formed in the area where the structure stands, disturbing the comfort of the space are one of the most important problems to be considered in high-rise buildings such as Gherkin Tower. And lift system, there are 23 elevators in 41-story Gherkin Tower office building. And fire safety, In the event of fire, Gherkin Tower firefighting system have been developed in case of fire the building. Fire warning is given by automatically heat and smoke detectors. Apart from automatic fire alarm, there are also many manual fire buttons in the building. A sprinkler systems with the deluge system at most 25 meters is used to respond with the fire. Another fire prevention in Gherkin is using special galvanized and fire resistance partitions to prevent splashing of fire to other parts via central fire control system after the evacuation of people in the area where the fire occurs. This energy saving this normally office building smaller than 50% less energy this Gherkin Tower use. And conclusion, this study focused on examining the diaggregate structural system and advantages which are widely used in tall buildings today, our Gherkin Tower. Toward the study, besides the advantage of the Gherkin Tower structural system, interaction of the diaggregate structure with architectural design has been examined and supported by field work. And
Mustafa, you have limited time.
Okay.
We are warning.
Thank you for listening me.
Thank you.
Thank you too for your presentation. Would you please close the video sharing?
Yeah.
So we can start with questions and curiosities.
Yes, I have some questions. I saw your presentation last night like it was a movie, because the presentation is very long but interesting. Interesting is the study outlined in contemporary architecture of the use of the triangle as the construction base to be able to climb higher and higher with the construction of buildings. But it's possible to go far back in time and find other historical and symbolical references in the use of this geometric form. It's not an invention of a contemporary era. But I have a question. In addition to the study conducted on the case of the Gherkin Tower, are you planning to expand the research to other contemporary construction inspired by the principles you outlined?
Yes, I want to make, in addition to study construction.
Okay, thank you. Another question, a curiosity. What do you think are the construction techniques that can be efficient for the architecture of the future?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
What are the construction techniques for the future to be efficient for the buildings?
Yeah, this diaggregate structure is very important for the high buildings and very less minutes, less time the building, because diaggregate structures, modules, and nodes prefabrication. Prefabrication has lets the buildings make less time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thanks. Is there any other question, please? No, it seems. Well, then if everyone agrees, please let's proceed with the next paper, which is documenting a study case coming from Nigeria. 5 authors, how many of them are present here, please?
Tolulope, I think he is here to present. Mr. Tolulope.
Yeah. Okay, so.
You can hear.
Yes. So,
the video.
And Mr. Tolulope, would you like please to introduce us your research?
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to first of all say that we are 5 and all of us are present here. And so in the course of the question and question section, I'm sure my colleagues will be available to answer. To break the whole conference, I would say that we studied liquid waste management in Nigeria and Nigeria, and it's of course a perception-based study. And we would know that starting from the 1760s, when the Industrial Revolution
looks like we lost the connection with the author.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm available.
Okay, then if you want to continue.
Okay. So I was saying that the study is a perception-based one, and yes, and we tried to look at, we traced, in fact, the origin of waste regulations back to the 19th century after the industrial districts and industrial clusters in Europe began to spring up, and they had problems in terms of crowded neighborhoods and areas being polluted. And so the study and the accounts that we see in Europe in the 19th century is not far-fetched from what we also see in Nigeria, where we are having a rife industrialization that is induced by rapid urbanization. And so we tried to look at and understand urban centers in our own sense, where we are having an increase in industrial development, which also is of two sides. You have the benefits of the increase being beneficial for a thriving economy, and you also have the situation where it is detrimental to the environment because of the environmental pollution that the waste these industries generate. And as a result, industrial developments in urban centers and the waste these industries generate must not be undermined and neglected because of reasons from human health and environmental safety. So the problem is that there are, of course, a lot of debates, and there is a consensus to say that efforts at managing industrial waste and pollution in developing countries like Nigeria are, of course, still at its embryonic stages. And you will see that there are, of course, different arguments, and people would say, some school of thought would say that environmental concern in developing countries is a ploy the developed countries have always used over time to ensure that these poor countries do not actually develop. And so it's not lost on me that the developing countries in most cases will say that they wholeheartedly welcome pollution so far that industrialization helps them to grow and then develop their economies. So in the case of Nigeria, what we have is that we have a lethargy of environmental regulation bodies, we have agencies, but more often than not, the industrial waste from industries, they end up in the environment. It could be as a result of a deliberate attempt or deliberate effort or an accidental effort of these industries. And so the research is, in fact, a perception-based one, and it's also an empirical one. And then the aim of the study was to investigate the perception of residents on liquid waste management of the industry that we selected. And the idea was to investigate residents' understanding of liquid waste management. And because it's a perception-based study, we went further to analyze water samples from point of discharge, in the neighborhood. And this is as a result of the fact that in urban centers in Nigeria, where you'd expect that the public water supply system is accessible to all, what you find in most cases is that we have a moribund water supply system, and individual residents thought to providing these services themselves in terms of digging wells or boreholes. And so the study, the methodological approach the study employed was to, first of all, layer the geographical scope of the study into two. And the first one being the industry where the study was conducted. And we selected buildings that fell in a kilometer radius of the industry. And then with the use of a geographic information system and ground truthing, we identified 4,300 buildings. And from this number of buildings, 5% of buildings we selected, and we administered 215 questionnaires to 215 residents. And I should also add at this point that the research is an advocacy-driven research, being that, of course, we know that there are regulations, there are policies in place by the government to ensure that industries actually treat their waste before disposal. But at the same time, what we also see is that residents who live in communities, in neighborhoods where these industries are located, they have a different opinion, in the sense that sometimes they'll say that these industries discriminately dispose of their waste to the environment. And so it's this mindset that motivated the study to go further to analyze the water samples. And then from the results, the distribution of respondents, we gathered that, like I mentioned earlier, 215 respondents were sampled for the study. And what we discovered in terms of their socio-economic characteristics is that female respondents actually topped the chart. And the reason is the fact that at the time when the study was conducted, male household members were out for either work or their other activities. And the minimum wage of Nigerians was put at 18,000 naira. And these respondents will be much more concerned about actually increasing their income. 6 variables into 6 poser questions. And then we asked these respondents these questions. And from the responses we gathered, it was sure, at least, that they were knowledgeable about the obnoxious effects of liquid waste in the environment. And like I was, scientifically, you cannot say that water the quality of water is either good or bad based on perception. So we went further to carry out of liquid waste. However, the perception of residents in terms of the management of their waste to these regulations, and in complementing the efforts of the industries, like I have already said also, industry should possess waste management plans, examining the air quality of neighborhood that have industries or are joined by industries, not just in study area, but in Nigeria as a whole. Thank you for listening.
Thank you too for your presentation. An extremely sensitive topic, and at the same time extremely contemporary still in some regions of the world, more than in the others. Is there any question?
Right, I've got some questions.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. It's really very in-depth, both in depth and breadth. A huge work you have done. So I'll start from because you have got 2 things here. One is perception based, another is technical. So I'll start with technical.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I have seen in your presentation, you tested water from two wells that were dug, right?
Yes, yes.
From two specific wells out of all this. So how did you select only 2 wells? I mean, was it any basis for selecting 2 specific wells?
Okay. Water. We collected 4 water samples. The first one being at the point of discharge of the industry. The second one being a surface running water. In the slide, there's a pictorial that showed a river that adjoins actually the industry, is behind the industry. And so that is where the second water sample was collected. And then, like I also mentioned, the respondents were within a kilometer radius of the industry. And then there have been further studies in Nigeria that actually conducted something similar in industrial areas. And then there's this study by Alao in 2010. The researchers also collected samples in more than four points. But in our own case, we collected samples from 2 hand dug wells that were 500 meters apart. And this was also influenced or informed by the proximity of the wells to the industry. And so based on the earlier research, like I mentioned, we had those. So we based the selection we hinged this selection on the fact that in literature it has been done by a couple of researchers. There's another one that was mentioned in the study, and these guys they collected samples from 8 wells, and they used a 1,000 meters interval distance between these wells. So ours was done based on the fact that in literature it has been done, and we used that to influence our own selection. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have some more questions. So this is one specific brewery, right? It's one specific brewery.
Yes. Okay. One specific brewery in Ibadan. Yes. Mm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have some more questions, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you measure so many samples.
Yes.
And, did you follow, just for my own knowledge, any ISO British standards or STEM standards for?
Yes. I mentioned that there are standardized value sets by the World Health Organization, and then we have those that are actually been set by NESRI. NESRI is a regulatory body in Nigeria, and one of their core mandates and their responsibility is to ensure setting standards for industries in terms of their operation, in terms of their management of waste, not just liquid waste. So NESRI has this value set. So ours was now our results or our studies were compared against the value set by the World Health Organization and that of NESRI. I understand and I'm aware that NESRI also sets their standards within the ambit of that of the World Health Organization. So we compared both. Yeah, but I'm also aware that NESRI would have also set their standards based on the peculiarity and the uniqueness of the environment that Nigeria is. Yeah.
My next question is, when you measured surface water data, you collected surface water data and you measured it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because did you do it from certain distance from the source, or it's just from one specific distance? Because it is diluted as it carries on. And you know what I mean, yeah?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we didn't. Okay, I understand what you mean. Because our focus wasn't on the microorganisms or the biodiversity life of the surface water that is the river. We didn't focus much on collecting samples from different intervals at the surface runoff. But because the surface runoff is adjoining actually the industry, so we collected sample not very far from the point of discharge, about 10 meters, if I'm correct. Yes. So we did not take samples at different intervals from the surface runoff. And this is based on the fact that the study was, the scope of the study is not to say, or it's not to look at the quality of water or the microorganisms' life and the biodiversity of microorganisms in the surface water. Yeah, I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. My last question, I'm just coming to perception now. Just wondering,
okay.
One more presenter, Doctor.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just finished now. Well, it's so technical. Why did you do perception survey? Is it for political reason? Like, because perception doesn't really matter here. It's so scientific, so technical. Is it just because it can fit into the policy, how people are feeling and their expectation? Is it the reason?
Okay, yes. I would answer this question, but I have a colleague who's also very eager to give you a response to that. Yeah, so she.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hi.
Yes. Just like established initially, the established part, the research is more an advocacy kind of research. So you see, and you don't do advocacy research without actually establishing the perception of people who are staying within that industry. So you see, the research is more perception advocacy driven, in the sense that you see most of these things are actually done in Nigeria without the influence or without actually connecting with the people around that area. So in order to, it's actually a perception-based study, but you see, perception in most cases are not scientific. So the technical part of it was just to corroborate whatever those people said. So the test was actually a way of corroborating, because yes, those people understand that yes, there's pollution, but you see, we can't just base our conclusion on the fact that they said there's pollution. So we needed to conduct this test in order to actually support their perception. So, and basically that was what happened. So it's more advocacy, because you see, in Nigeria, sometimes we need some of these advocacy driven research, unlike in some of these developed countries, they're actually very stringent with some of these regulations. In Nigeria, sometimes these regulations are actually handled with the carrot hand and not stiff hand. So basically, I believe I've been able to share a little light on your question. Thank you.
Thank you. I got your point. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks to the authors, and thanks also to Dr. Eschler for this interesting conversation and really proper and contemporary questions to this very sensitive and topic. So in the conclusion of the present session, we have one more presentation. Are the authors available? Yes.
Let me read the name. Dr. Milorad, I saw her or him. She was around. So I am telling the name. Rihanna. Actually, I saw Hafnuo in the meeting. Probably she lost the connection, it seems.
Perhaps, yeah. The other authors, Hamzoi or Bada? It's not available.
Well, if they can, maybe later on they can do. But however, we can have the conclusion of the session.
Yeah, if the authors are not available, well, in conclusion, I really would like to thank all the participants to this session. And I extend my gratitude to the organizers of this conference, Dr. Hurash and Dr. Roxane. I'm very thankful to my colleagues, Professor Francesco and Dr. Eschler, for participating in the questions. It's been an honor to host this first session. I wish you a successful continuity for today with the other sessions. And tomorrow I will be glad to join again this place for the second day. Thank you very much again, and enjoy the continuity of today.
Thank you, Milorad Hoca, Francesco, Esrar, and other participants.
Thank you, dear Dr. Milorad and Dr. Esrar. If you have any comments, Dr. Esrar, to conclude as well, it would be also great.
Not really. I mean, it's a great presentation. I really enjoyed all this presentation, and I hope to see the others as well who we are missing now. But it's great. Thank you.
It was great. Thank you for your valuable comments. And you studied, I mean, a lot for your effort that you have done during the last week to prepare these comments. Appreciate that, Dr. Milorad as well, and Dr. Francesco as well. Do we have our third session chair, Dr. Francesco, is around?
Yes.
Perfect. So we have 5 minutes remain. If there was any other comments, so to discuss in this regard, it was very nice discussion. I enjoyed it. It was perfect. Actually, we have reached our mission till now, 100%. Everything is going even more than 100. It is very nice indeed. Appreciate that for your support. High quality, high standard. And I hope that we will, let's say, the news will be distributed around the world on this discussion. And we may have another webinar in the future regarding the post-pandemic, post-coronavirus and urban design issues. So we will have another webinar. We will have some professors all around the world to have the specific subject to discuss with each other in this area, post-pandemic, and the responsibilities of urban designers. And it would be a great discussion. I will send you an email to share the information to decide in the future in this regard. We may have 2 or 3 weeks time to decide what to do. It would be a nice discussion resulting from this conference. And we have also one paper regarding post-pandemic and urban design as well. If you may see in session, one of session 2 or 3, it was a nice paper that I've been reading, and I hope they will be able to present on session D. Very nice. Thank you for all your efforts. Congratulations one more time, Dr. Shar, Dr. Milorad, and Dr. Francesco. Appreciate your support.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we can thank you, Dr. Shar, Milorad. Let's appreciate your support.
Thank you too. Thanks to everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Dr. Islam and
yeah.
Yes, Dr. Islam.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure today to be with you here in this session. And I would like to first acknowledge Dr. Raksh about his effort to come to this stage. I have my colleague, Dr. Sana and Dr. Simoni, and today, inshallah, in this session, we have very promising research papers. I wonder if the voice is okay from my side. It's okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So I have the first author, if it's available, as far as I understand, that the community participation in decision-making process in urban planning, the case of Colas. So it is Miss Laura, as far as I hope that I read it correctly. She is available, please.
Yes, yes. Hello.
Okay.
Very nice background, by the way, dear Dr. Laura.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So really nice to be here in this conference. So I'm also with my colleague Aushra here. So thank you for organizers. It is really nice experience to have such big conference here. So yes, so I would like to start maybe my presentation. So I don't know how we will start. Should I share?
Dear conference participants, my name is Laura.
Excuse me. Okay, sorry. I will run the background of your presentation, and then will you please that to give like a brief about your paper, and you have about no more than 10 minutes. If it's allowed to, please, you can start, and then we can continue. I will leave the background for your presentation.
See, maybe you can show us a slide. Gives us possibility for public possibility to participate and be a part or like changing
point, which is public participation. I believe for most of the urban designer, when they face this public participation, they find a conflict, especially if we have, like in your case, some political background and some let's say habits to deal with such issues. So but I have one small question related to what you applied in this research, that you sure that when you have your survey or and when you ask different category, as you mentioned, that elderly people and whatever, I believe that because of some of the categories, they have restricted background, or let's say solid or stone background. They are not flexible, and they have like a clear understanding that whatever they can talk, nobody will listen to them. Did you face this problem when you did your questionnaire? Because I face it in different countries.
Mm-hmm. For sure, when we did our questionnaire, as I mentioned, we made this questionnaire online. So that means who could answer to our questionnaire was like social network users. So mostly of them, they are more free, and they use and express. And for example, what I didn't mention that was quite interesting in our research, that for example, a lot of almost our respondents, they hear or they talk about this urban planning problems in Kona, or how to participate in the decision making in urban planning. But what is the most interesting? Mostly they talk with their friends and on social network. So in this case, it seems some like a conflict between municipality, because just a few maybe members, they takes care about real participation, not just to talk with a friend or what kind of problems I see outside my house.
Yes, okay. So if my colleague, Dr. Roxana and Dr.
I'm not
Simone,
sure I'm answered to the question.
Yeah, it's excellent. But I just to mention about my dearest colleague in the session, Dr. Roxana or Dr. Simone. Do you like anyone to add any questions, or you have any questions, please?
Yes, and I want to ask good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Laura. And I want to ask, first of all, you told about the role of social networks that are really useful to put together what people think. But something that also in Italy is really difficult is then to translate what people think in what architecture can operatively do. By this operation of translation, what thought to particular tools to design? So first of all, by the part of the administrations and governments, because it's always difficult to find the real way, the effect.
It seems there is a network problem, I believe.
Okay, because I didn't understand if it was of Mrs. Laura, so we can wait or so it's a general question, not only for singular countries, while worldwide, because we are in an era full of communication and full of possibility to understand, to listen what but it's really difficult to translate what people think in something by governments really operative in a real functional way. And so I think that this is a really point of interest here to make a conversation between many countries of many parts of the world, because I think that could be a really interesting relation to understand how many things can work worldwide.
Yeah, especially if we have like these circumstances, we have this in Corona, let's say Corona time, that most of us we are using this social media. But this very good point, Dr. Simoni, that some people or some category do not trust of this social media, or they are not compatible with this social media. Ms. Laura, she came back again. You can hear Dr. Simoni's
yes.
question.
I know. Sorry, I lost my connection.
Okay, so I will resume just in a sentence. So what kind of tools the governments really developed in Lithuania in these cases to translate what people think to something that could be a really instrumental, architectural instrumental tool to design the city's case?
Okay, it's good, very good question. For sure, we have, like mentioned, we have like a few phases, and it depends on phase in this participation according to the law. But the real tools, that means like meetings, for example, when you like a company or architects, they're preparing documents, they have to first of all send to the communities these documents, or to present to the communities. And this like a participation meeting, during this meeting you can give us some kind of feedback to the planners and to give some proposals. So this is maybe the most important participation tool for the public, and it is not only when the like a project is prepared, but also in the phase of preparatory phase, it should be like also presented to the communities who is interested. For example, at this moment we are preparing like a general plan of Lithuania, and just few days ago we had like a possibility to participate in such online Zoom meeting to give some feedback on this planning document, which is main and general in Lithuania.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to the second presenter. I wonder if he's available or not.
Yes, she's here.
Excellent. So welcome to for the
smart
by which all are strictly way to make questions, then can directly go to solutions. So I just wanted to ask to the doctor, it disappeared, but Nico from, okay, thank you. So I would like to ask you which are one of in the conclusions that can directly come from the analysis.
That is, I'm trying to evaluate all the indicators that is related to the subjective and objective, but in overall we can understand that in the subjective indicator we have a lot of problems, and in the objective indicators, that is the problems is related to the environmental and physical characteristics mostly, and that is evaluated that in my conclusion that it improve the compaction and improve the density and remove the sprawl, urban sprawl, and have a one strategic planning or a good master planning can improve the quality of life in this city, according to two of the indicators that is evaluated in this paper.
One comment. is it also, does it need for all the neighborhoods or all the districts of the city that you mentioned?
Yes, that it is mentioned that in this, for example, in my paper, it's divided in different neighborhoods. That in all the neighborhoods we can see these problems. Instead of that, in the old city that is related to the castle. We can see that the density in that environment, but has the other problems like public transportation and the other indicators, such as, for example, that is related to the objective, and create a big problem in this neighborhoods as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nejda. Now we'll go to move for the second presenter, which is Ms. Asad. Her paper